Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher in the first of our new series, although we've had some other videos regarding this. We are going to be doing something called Should You Roll? Should you roll? It's the biggest question I've ever asked, right? Is, Preacher, what should I roll? Should I level this? Should I do that? Well, let's do a series based on that. Considering the fact that in Mists of Pandaria, Blizzard have in fact been absolutely golden in their design of the classes. They are more than happy with how the classes are playing right now, and all we're getting is minor tweaks. Therefore, guides and such just aren't relevant right now. They're just not the case. We've got a good solid foundation to look at, and if you're looking for a guide regarding any of the Hunter specs, the links are in the background. You can go ahead and click those and you'll find out some basics, some goods, how to gem, reforge, and all that good quality stuff. What we're going to talk about today is whether or not you should actually try this bad boy out. The Hunter has been the most reliable, stable member of any raiding team for the longest time. In fact, their heyday has never really come. They were close to it in the Burning Crusade, and the Sunwell Hunters, especially Beast Mastery Hunters, were in fact shining very, very brightly. But overall, the Hunter has a long tradition of being sort of middle of the pack, average, just sort of sitting there, always welcome, never kicked out, but certainly never being that we need 24 Hunters. One could argue Yogg-Saron on Zero Lights, which was dominated by the fact Hunters had a taunt, but that wasn't really anything other than a requirement just to make sure that fight was killed. Should you roll a Hunter? Well, of course, a Hunter is the pet class, okay? The original Golden Star of the pet class along with the Warlock, and therefore you are going to get a pet that comes with it. You can name it. A lot of people just love that aspect, quite simply, is the fact that I can have a pet, I can call it some funny name, and I can have a great time with that. And I totally get that. One of my very first classes was, in fact, a Hunter. A Night Elf Hunter. I went Legolas on that bad boy, and it was absolutely cool. And it was, in fact, just having a pet and enjoying that. And having a very, very easy farm class, which is what a Hunter is. It's very easy to farm, extremely easy to level. You're very rarely ever going to be risking dying if you're playing a Hunter, which a lot of people find quite nice. A lot of escape mechanics and all that kind of stuff. Some people call the Hunter boring. A lot of people are frustrated with the Hunter in Mists of Pandaria. They're finding it a little bit of a struggle. I actually do not think that is the case, if you want my personal opinion. Hunters can be played in one of two ways. One is a very boring way, which is sort of a standard DPS role. You are just doing pure damage, which means you're limited to your 5 or 6 spells that do variety types of damage, and that is it. But the Hunter contains one of the most varied toolboxes of any class in the game. I would even compare them to as far as a Holy Priest. The toolbox offered, what is the toolbox? These are the spells that are optional to an extent that you don't have to use to get what you want out of this class. If you're just looking to get some gear, just looking to do some damage, then you don't have to go balls deep into the Hunter's spells. But a Hunter does have the ability to do remarkable things. Absolutely remarkable things. If we look at the fact that they can not only do incredible amounts of CC, not just freezing things, slowing things, scattering things, mixing the fact that Silencing Shot, pretty much mandatory now if you're doing any form of PvE and or PvP. Silencing Shot is one of those spells that you just cannot live without. And then mixing the fact you've got Misdirects, Feigned Deaths, Disengages. You can do so many different things with your Hunter when you start actually getting into it, that it really makes it a fun class to play. But you have to force that on yourself because it's not actually required. You can get away with a lot of no CCing at all. It's very rare that I see any Hunters doing things like slowing mobs that are chasing people, doing things like concussive shots, doing things like dropping down a big nice frost trap, all these kind of things that you have the variety and options to do, but you don't feel that it's needed, and you can very blindly just dribble away at your keyboard and do your basic DPS rotation. Anybody feeling bored with the Hunter should really look into the toolbox and see exactly what else you can offer. A really good Hunter, if you're looking to be that super role in a raid, if you're looking to be that guy, if you're looking to be the one who wants a little bit of responsibility, you have fully capable abilities to do that. And that is the greatest strength of the Hunter. That's what I really like about it. And that is why they are so highly represented. You need a spec or a class that can do a ton of movement without losing a single drop of DPS. You're going to go looking for a Hunter. You're looking for someone to do a ton of kiting. You're going to go looking for a Hunter. You're going to look to someone to move orbs. You're going to look to someone who can soak a lot of damage. You're going to look towards a Hunter because they can do all these things. They can take it on the chin, and not only that, with the removal of aspects of the fox, they can in fact do that without ever losing any DPS. Moving around for the hunter is the biggest strength of it. They can do these big tasks that require running, that require a lot of movement, that require a lot of extra thinking, and they can do it all without suffering on the DPS meters. They are stability. That is what the hunter is. Mr. Pandaria hasn't been very kind to hunters. If you're looking to roll and try one out, they haven't been overly kind. Their DPS has been average to low overall, and that's across all 3 of their talents. They have been average to low, but still they are there. They are still in your raid group. They are still the guys who are misdirecting those newly spawned ads and making sure that people do not die. Again, going back to this idea of the toolbox, so many hunters just forget about misdirects because threat is such a triviality. You then look to some fights where there's random ads spawning and you will spot a good hunter misdirecting all those things and actually rescuing members of the raid who are a little bit overzealous with their DPS and just providing that extra foundation. They can provide so much to the raid that they are always represented. Whether or not their DPS is average to best, it doesn't matter because no matter what the situation, the hunter delivers. Let's talk about some of the problems with the hunter that you might face. One, this is a pet class. We can't get away from that. It is a pet class and it relies heavily on its pets, not just Beast Mastery. Your pet is a huge source of damage, depending on whether you're even your marksman or survival. Pets can be a pain in the ass. There's no doubt about that. I recently did a video regarding assist, and also the fact that pets sometimes do not work on certain bosses. Garrelon was a classic example of this. Garrelon and Mr. Pandaria was horrendous with pets. It's always difficult to have a huge source of damage that is not entirely at your control. You are generally going to be relying on the NPC and AI abilities of your pet to do what it's supposed to do. Ideally, you want your pet to be scratching the living shit out of anything you point it at. Sometimes it just cannot do that. Sometimes it bugs out. Pets aren't particularly good at elevators, changing levels, moving and jumping around. Pets just can't do that. And you are going to run into issues with that every now and again. Blizzard is pretty quick to fix these things, but when it happens, you can feel that your raid spot is massively in jeopardy because you are essentially fighting with no bow. If your pet is doing nothing, you are less than a player. You are far less than a player, and you will have to bear in mind that rolling a hunter means you have to rely on your pet, and your pet needs some micromanagement. If you're not comfortable with your micromanagement of your pet and making sure he's doing what he's doing and keeping an eye on what he is doing, then you might run into problems. The primary issue that you're going to find with a hunter is both good and bad. The variety of the talent specs. You've got marksmanship, you've got survival, and you've got beast mastery. A lot of people complaining, and I too agree with them, is that their talents and all 3 of those specs tend to play exactly the same. And that's generally not that great if you are a better player. What do I mean by that? Let's take a rogue, for example. Rogue, straight up DPS class, right? Uses 2 dual-wielding weapons and is generally going to kick some ass. However, there is a huge world of difference between subtlety and combat and assassination. They play very, very differently. Sub, combat, assassination plays very, very differently. If we look at a priest, shadow, dis, and holy play very, very differently. If we look at shamans, or in fact look at any other class in the game, all 3 specs actually play extremely differently. Not quite so with the hunters. One minor issue is that their top 3 talents that you'll choose are in fact literally the same buttons swapped around. So if you find something like Glaive Toss is best for all 3 specs, no matter what spec you're playing, you're going to be using Glaive Toss. But the main issue comes in this form. Every single one of the spells is completely replaceable and barely any different to the other ones. What do I mean by that? Hunters have one big spell. That's generally something like Survival will have Black Arrow. Marksman has Chimera Shot, essentially the same as Black Arrow, another dot that gets put on it, and BM has Kill Command. We all have one proc to track, which will be something like Explosive Shot for Survival, Aim Shot for Marksmanship, and so on and so forth. This is the big problem, is the entire 3 specs of the Hunter play exactly the same. And in fact, another big issue is their cooldowns across all 3 of the talents are exactly the same again. So it doesn't really matter. You do not get any flavor, and that is one of the issues. You get no flavor with the Hunter. You don't get that variety that you want to do. All 3 cooldowns are baked in. You all have Readiness, you all have Rapid Fire, and you all have Stampede, your big ones. There is nothing else. There is nothing specific. There is only Bestial Wrath for the BM Hunters, and that is about it. One out of the 3 specs has its own little cooldown, and it's sad. It's sad when you compare it to the other classes that have some variety of play, that have some difference in how they work. Then it's nice. It's a little bit of flavour, a little bit of relearning. You can definitely not say that a Fury Warrior plays the same as Arms, and certainly does not play the same as Prot. A lot of flavour there, a lot of mixing it in, and a nice little bit of relearning. However, what if you're a new player and you're looking for an easy class? Hunters are actually right up there. Of course they are. You can have a very easy leveling experience. You get a fun pet. You're unlikely to die a lot. You have a lot of get out of jail free cards with feigned deaths and so on. And on top of that, if you have to switch spec, you're not going to have too bad of a time. You're actually going to find it pretty much the same. And therefore, it actually is very friendly to new players. Hunter's one of the great classes for new players to enjoy. Absolutely great class for new players to enjoy. They say, oh, survival certainly couldn't suddenly top of the DPS. It's literally a reforge and a regem, and the class plays exactly the same as what you've been playing before. If you've been playing Beast Mastery and have to switch over to Marksman, you're not going to have a bad time. You're actually going to pick it up extremely quickly. So some might look at this as a negative thing, and some might look at this as a good thing. Should you roll a Hunter? Definitely you give it a try. They are one of the most stable and relevant classes throughout the history of World of Warcraft. Never really ever having a really bad time, and very friendly. If I was to look towards the advanced players and you're looking to try something out with a little bit of flavour and a little bit of fun involved, then you might not enjoy it too much, because you're only realistically going to get one type of play. You're only going to get one type of gameplay. What you're not going to get is a class that has 3 distinct styles of gameplay for you to play around on as an alt. You're probably not going to get that. That's my look at the Hunter. I hope that helped you guys in making your decision. Take it easy, ballers, and I'll see you later.